I don't really know how to start this video. I feel very anxious, but I know once this is done, I'm just gonna feel better. Like I only have to make this video once and never again. I've known for months that sooner or later I would have to make a video like this, but that doesn't make it any easier when it's time. So as many of you know, my retired guide dog Gallop, who all of you I know adore, passed away on August 31st. I just want to say first off, I'm so grateful for like all the love and support and compassion, and especially for all the stories and the memories you've all shared with me, publicly and privately. It was so nice to receive during what's been a difficult and emotional time. So just thank you all so much for that. Like the outpouring of love for that dog was just incredible, and I think speaks to the impact that Gallop had on the world, which I think is like genuinely immeasurable. I don't know, I feel like he's like the most famous guide dog ever. Like between not only the amount of videos that he was on my channel, but the amount of views he got on all of the other channels that we've been on together, all the collaborations that we've done, I mean, it's hundreds of millions of views that dog has gotten. He's been in store window displays and in magazines. He's walked on runways. He went to over 6 countries. He lived in 3 different cities in 2 different countries. He's been in TV shows, and he did so much with his life. And I'm very comforted by that. He was over 11 years old, which, to be honest, I feel so grateful that I got that much time with him. He went through literally all of my 20s with me. I got him when I was 20, and he passed away when I'm 29. So he literally went through my whole 20s with me. 7 of those years as my guide dog, into living the best retirement, you know, after traveling the world on first-class flights and going to places like the United Nations and the World Economic Forum and going to red carpet events. He couldn't just live a boring retirement, you know? So he had 2 jobs as a store greeter at a furniture store and at a pet-friendly gym where he supported people in their workouts. Yeah, I mean, he was just loved by like everyone who knew him, whether it was somebody who just like met him out on their walk, somebody who helped babysit him, or somebody who just watched him on the internet. I know he was loved by so many, and he inspired so many of you to get your first guide dog or service dog, to puppy raise or foster a future service dog in training, to become a dog trainer. Like, it's incredible the amount of change that he made, helping educate the world on what it means to be a real working service dog with a job. He's left like such a huge legacy. But I know many people are curious about what happened, and I think that's fair. It hasn't felt like exploitative that people have been asking. I've understood that some other people feel that like they need closure, because for many people he wasn't just like a random dog on the internet that they followed along with all the other dogs on the internet they follow. Like, I know that for a lot of people he meant a lot, and so a lot of you have followed me. I mean, I literally started this YouTube channel with Gallop. Like, the month I got home with him, I started my channel. Like, we built this together. As much as Elton likes to think this is his channel now, it'll always be Gallop and I's channel, you know. We started it together. So I know many of you have literally known him, like OGs to this channel have known him for as long as I've known him almost. So I understand the curiosity and like wanting to get some of that closure, and I hope this can provide that for some of you. As I said, he was over 11 years old. On May 2nd, he turned 11, so he was about 11 and a quarter. And he's a big boy. He was very, very tall. He's half Bernese Mountain Dog, 50% Bernese Mountain Dog. He was a large breed. So as we all know, as dog lovers, large breeds don't live as long as smaller breeds. That's unfortunately just a part of having a large dog. So there's that aspect to it. He's half Bernese Mountain Dog, which their life expectancy is like, I believe, 7 to 9 years. Majority passing away from cancer. They are a very, very cancer-prone breed. Thankfully, mixing them with something like a Labrador does really help minimize that. But at the end of the day, you know, he's a large breed. He was over 11 years old, and he was half of a breed that's very cancer-prone. So I knew that time was going to run out eventually, like sooner rather than later. But back in April, I know I posted this video, I think back in May, with like an update on all of my animals, where I showed you guys like Lavender and Elton and Gallop, and I said that he had just gotten blood work that was like pristine. It was perfect. No issues. And we had wanted to get that blood work to ensure that he was going to be okay to get some dental work done, because, you know, they have to get put to sleep for that, and that can be a lot on their body at an old age, especially if they are not in good enough health to do so. So that's why we had that testing done. And we were going to schedule him in, but we were leaving soon for, my mom and I were going back to Los Angeles with Elton, and then we were heading on to my brother's wedding. And it wasn't like urgent dental work. He wasn't in any pain. And so they just said, like, whenever you have the time for it, book him in. So we figured we would book him in when we got back in early July. But when we returned home in early July, he had a stomach bug. And so we took him to the vet, and the vet said, you know, it should clear up on its own in a few days, gave us like a few little tips and tricks, and told us basically like not to really worry about it, and that when it cleared up, we could book him in for surgery, but of course he can't go for surgery if he has a stomach bug. So we were waiting on that to clear up, and it was bad, like lots of diarrhea and stuff. Sorry if that's TMI, but such is life. And it was like 10 days, like it was a really long time, but it did clear up, though he wasn't going back to like eating normally the way he was pre the stomach bug. They didn't do any testing. I don't know what the stomach bug was. They just said it's like a stomach bug. Might have eaten something on the walk, that type of thing. And my Galloper Goose did like to eat his goose poop, so you never know. So we thought, okay, well, I mean, he's getting old, like maybe, and he needs to get all the dental work done, so maybe we'll just switch him to soft food and see if he does better with that. And he did. And over the following 2 months, 6 weeks, 2 months that he had left, he never stabilized enough to get the dental work. He was kind of in this constant cycle of like up and down. We would see these improvements that would give us hope, and then he would have a day or two of decline, and then he would seem better again and he would decline. And I think that the fact that he kept showing signs of getting better just made us feel like it was going to be okay, you know, like, oh, we don't have to bring him back in. And I think part of that was us just wanting to ignore the problem, to be honest, like not ignore it in terms of like not care for him, but ignore it in terms of like not face the fact that maybe something was really wrong. He'd have a lot of good days, yeah, and where he'd just be like himself, and he'd still go for these long walks, and, you know, he'd bark when I came in, run through my legs, like he was him. And so we kind of just were like, well, he's getting older, like sure, some days he's gonna be sleepier than others, or he's not gonna want to eat dry food and he'll only eat wet food. Like, it's just him getting older. You know, in the last few months of his life, he just wanted to be with me. I think he knew that our time together was limited. And so when I was leaving for Sonoma, in this video I just posted last week, that was a work trip. I was doing work for a number of different brands, and the night before, Gallop was laying in my room, and I started petting him and I just realized like how skinny he was. Like he had just lost so much weight, and I just got this really bad feeling. I just started to tear up, and I just went out to my mom and I said, if anything happens to Gallop, please don't tell me till I'm home. Because I knew there was no way that I was gonna be able to get home if something went wrong. And I knew it would like crush me. And I just needed to be able to do my job. So I just told her, please just don't tell me. Thankfully, 8 days later, I came home, and I went from Sonoma to Seattle, where I filmed a video you'll be seeing in a few weeks, and we drove from Seattle, and we had a rental car, and so my parents dropped Elton and I off so I could get Elton out of the car, and he didn't have to be in the car for 30 more minutes to go drop the car off. We could just get him home, feed him, I could see Gallop. And my parents went to drop the car off, and when I walked into the condo, he didn't come running. He didn't bark. And just a week prior to me leaving for Sonoma, I had been on a wellness retreat, and when I came home, he barked, he ran, he was his normal self. So just 2 weeks later, all of a sudden he didn't bark, he didn't come running, and I had to go find him in my room to tell him that I was home. I was home alone with him, and I just knew that it was really the beginning of the end. That was on a Friday, and he passed away on a Thursday, so just under a week later. I just sat with him on the floor, and I just thanked him for being such a great dog. I told him how happy I was to see him, but that if it was his time to go, he could tell me. It was okay if he needed to go soon. And he just lay there and he listened. And he was so skinny, so I figured even if he already ate dinner, I can feed him again, if he'll eat, he needs to, So I sat there and I hand fed him. And he ate 2 whole cups of dry kibble. He scarfed it down he was so hungry. And I just held it for him as he ate. And again, moments like that, they gave me hope. And over the coming days, I would hand feed him every meal to make sure he ate. And I would give him a mix of dry food and wet food and whatever he wanted, whatever he wanted to eat. I was just trying to get him to eat as much as I could get him to eat. And he was doing really well with being hand-fed by me. And he was still going on his walks, but they weren't quite as long. And over the past few months, he started to struggle to stand up a bit. Most of my condo is hardwood floors, and again, long, skinny legs, big boy. So you've seen a lot of older dogs, his back legs were starting to go a bit. So just all those little tiny slow declines, And Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I felt he was doing well. He would sleep with me every night, and he still hadn't made any vocal sound. And then Tuesday, it was 2 in the afternoon, and he still hadn't gone out to the bathroom. We tried, but he just wouldn't get up. And that's when I cried again, and I just knew, if he's not even getting up to go out, there's something really wrong. Because he hadn't been out since 10 p.m. the night before, that's a long time. And yeah, he was used to very long haul flights to Europe and stuff, but still, that's not right. And thankfully, we got treats out. And the moment he saw the treats, then he would stand up and he went for a little walk and he went to the bathroom. And he was having, in the last week of his life, he was having the best poops he had had in a long time. Big, solid, good poops. I think it was from all the good hand feeding. Anyways, when that happened on the Tuesday, we immediately made a vet appointment for the next day, which was the earliest they had. It was at 4:00. The vet lives near us. We've always walked to the vet. We don't have a car or anything, and it's I live in the city, so you're able to basically walk to everything you need. That's the benefits of living in a city. You don't need a car. And so we left 30 minutes early. We left at 3:30 to make sure to give him enough time to walk there. And he just seemed a little delirious. I don't know, he was kind of weaving when he was walking. It just didn't seem normal. But we got there, like we got to the vet, they weighed him and brought us into the room, and I just told the vet everything that was going on, and she told us she was gonna run some tests. So she just checked him out, like she checked his heart rate and that kind of stuff and breathing, and she basically told us that his heart rate was elevated, which is extremely unusual for a dog as calm as him. She said that the whites of his eyes were showing signs of anemia and that he had a fever. His temperature was elevated. And so she decided to do a full panel of blood work as well as x-rays, which thankfully were able to all be done immediately with near immediate results. So they came in, and it was really kind. Like, they didn't even make him get up and go back for the blood work. They brought the person into the room to do it, which they wouldn't usually do, but they just wanted to keep him moving the least amount possible. I was just crying the whole time. I think they could all tell I was just really distraught and scared, and they were all very kind and comforting, which I appreciate. Then they took him back for the x-ray, and by about 5:15-ish, we got the results. He had a large mass in his abdomen, and it was likely that there was also masses in his chest, which was stopping him from making vocal sound, like not allowing him to bark and stuff anymore. They didn't x-ray his chest because basically the x-ray of his abdomen gave them all the information that they needed to know. So there was no point in putting him through more and spending more money when we already knew the answer. But she said basically her suspicion was that it was in his chest because that was a very common place, especially in this breed, for cancer to spread. And that would make sense as to why he was no longer making vocal noise. The more important part in this puzzle was that there was fluid around his spleen. The mass was coming off of his spleen, and there was fluid around the spleen, which was internal bleeding. And they did the blood work, which did show he was severely anemic, which would have been because of internal blood loss. And she basically said that letting him go was the path forward at that point. And so I asked her how much time I had left, and she said a day or two. It was important to let him go in a day or two. She said he was not in any pain. He would just continue to get more and more sleepy and ultimately would eventually stop breathing. His quality of life would only get worse at that point because he was still able to walk, eat, drink. He ultimately was still having like a little bit of quality of life, and that it would be better to let him go while he still had that little bit of quality and not just drag it out 4 or 5 days when by the end he would have no quality of life. They had to check his blood pressure because they actually weren't even sure, based on how anemic he was, they weren't even sure that he was going to be able to leave. So they took his blood pressure. It was really sweet. The girl who came in, she had taken his blood work earlier. And when she came in to take his blood pressure, she was like giving him lots of treats and petting him, being really sweet with him. And she was tearing up. Like, he just had an impact on everybody who met him. And thankfully, they said he was okay to leave. And I asked if there was any option to have him go to sleep at home. And so they gave me some contact info. And we started the walk home. About halfway home, he was really like weaving. Yeah, sorry, I'm such a mess. I'm trying to keep it together the best I can. I waited to film this video till I felt like I was ready, but I know ultimately I never will be ready. Like, I'll always be a mess talking about this. Anyways, halfway home, he stopped and he went behind me and he put his head between my legs, like to go through my legs. The way you guys know he always did, which he hadn't done in a little bit. And instead of continuing to go through, he just stood there and he looked up at me with his head between my legs from behind, and he just looked at me. And I really think he knew. I really feel like he understood. And we just stood there crying. And then he just laid down. And I just sat in the middle of the sidewalk with him. And my dad came over and met my mom and I with a bag of treats, because he loved his treats right up till the end. And he, just like we had on Tuesday, the day before, we showed him the treats, and he happily walked home eating treats, but he just wanted to walk beside me. And I got home and I just sat with him on the floor with his head in my lap. My mom ran out and got all the cheese, like so much cheese. We've got the Goodbye Gallop cheese tray, right? What do you want first? Ooh, what's some of this one? Yummy, yummy, yummy. He already had some Swiss when we were putting it together. Because you couldn't wait, could you? The moment he heard the cheese getting cut, he
just came right to life.
Well, I say ran to the kitchen. He didn't run, obviously, but...
Oh, he's pretty fast on his feet.
Yeah.
His paws.
Yeah, we'll give you a whole taster. Everybody loves a baby bell.
You can't wait. Look, he's like, come on, come on, come on.
Here we go. Oh, the whole thing.
Wow.
Okay, now I think we'll save some more for later. We don't want your tummy to get too sick, huh? He says, Mom, I've never gotten sick in over 11 years from eating cheese, never once. You're certainly not lactose intolerant, I know that much for sure. So yeah, he ate, I can tell you, like that looked like a lot of cheese. That was Wednesday night. He passed away like Thursday afternoon around 1:30, 2 o'clock. He ate almost all of that cheese. Literally, he ate almost all of it. And he didn't have any gas, nothing. Like that boy could throw cheese back. He was not lactose intolerant, that's for damn sure. And, you know, he slept in my room that night, and I woke up and checked on him twice in the night to make sure he was still there. And his breathing was very shallow. I was so scared he wasn't gonna make it through the night, you know. But he made it to the next morning, and my mom woke me up at 8 a.m. and told me that they had an appointment for 9 or for 1. And I was like, no, not 9. Like, I'm not ready to say goodbye in an hour. Like, so thankfully we took the 1 o'clock appointment. And I just spent my day with him, and I made this little video with him so you guys could all say goodbye. In about 2 hours, Gallop will be going for his forever sleep, and he loves to sleep. So that's gonna be awesome for you. But I just wanted you guys to get to see him one more time and say goodbye. So I know he would say big thank you if he could for all the years of love you've given him and all the fun he's had with you guys. And don't worry, he has been enjoying all the cheese and all the hugs. So much cheese. And that's amazing to be able to give him a send-off where he's not in pain. He's still able to have his cheese and enjoy that. And he can go to sleep at home where he's comfortable and safe. Everybody loves him around him. You know, Gallop's trainer, literally up until today, if you asked her, like, would always say that Gallop was one of her all-time favorites, and she's been training dogs since the 80s. And she would say that he was more angel than dog. Just less than a year ago, when she came to do my follow-up with Elton in LA, she was like, talking about Gallop. She was like, he's just an angel on earth. And she's right. And now he's gonna really get his angel wings. You're gonna go be a real angel, right where you belong. As you could see, he was, you know, he was alert enough. He would pick his head up every now and then. He would mostly just sleep. For the last hour, about 2 hours before he passed, he went into my bedroom, which, like I said, was where he slept, where he spent all day, every day, pretty much. Like, that's where he just wanted to be in the last few months of his life. And so I went to my bedroom and I just sat with him and I just talked. I just told him stories. And I thanked him for everything. Just talked about all our memories. And I told him that I was gonna be okay. That he could go. His job was done. He had taken care of me. And I was gonna be safe without him here. I don't know why I put makeup on today. Especially liner on the bottom. Probably because putting on makeup makes me feel good and I enjoy it. It's like self-care. So then when I'm stressed or anxious about something, I just do even more. I keep putting it on because I'm like, I need this distraction and this fun. But I wore this sweater. I wore this sweater when I found out he had to go, and I wore this sweater when we said goodbye because, well, it's funny that I was wearing it when I found out, and then the next day I put it back on because it has peace on one sleeve and love on the other, and I thought, that's the perfect way to send him out, with peace and love. So this is now his sweater. It reminds me of him. But yeah, we just sat there and we just talked, and he just laid there with his head in my lap, and a few times he wrapped his paw around my leg, and it was just really lovely. And I'm so glad. Like, I'm so grateful that I had that. I feel so lucky because with Gypsy, like, it was really sudden and unexpected. As you might know if you heard her story of how she passed. And so I honestly feel like this dog's life, start to end, was blessed. Like, he had the most blessed life, and he deserved it because he's an angel. His trainer always said he was more angel than dog. And she's right. And now he's a real angel. And right before the vet came, I gave him some wet food. He drank like half a bowl of iced water, and right before the vet came in, I gave him his last piece of cheese. And the vet came into my bedroom. I felt like that's where he was. That's where he wanted to be. That's where he should go. I just told Gallop he could just go take the best nap ever. He loved naps. He always loved naps. I always used to say his side hustle was napping. So I told him it was okay to just go to sleep. And so, oh, that morning, actually, my dad took him out for one more walk. And just like he had with me, he ran through my dad's legs like 4 times, which he hadn't done to my dad in a while either. And I you know, my dad had been his main caretaker in the last while because he lives here full time, and this is where Gallop lived. And so whenever we were in LA, like, he was his full-time caretaker. And as a retired dog, like, I tried to separate a bit, you know. In that last week, I was doing all of his care, but my dad took him for like his last hurrah together because they loved their walks. And yeah, he did that, and I think that was his goodbye to my dad. You know, I really think he knew. And anyways, the vet came in, and he was very kind and compassionate, and he also cried a bit. And he told me what might happen. He told me that, you know, he would give him one shot that would help him fall asleep, and then he would give him an IV that would ultimately stop his heart. So he got the first shot, and he told me it's very common for dogs to throw up, get nauseous, get dizzy when they get the sedative, similar to when people get surgery. It's very common when you get put to sleep for surgery to get nauseous or vomit. It's just a side effect of sedatives. And then he said with the medication to stop his heart can happen where dogs gasp for air, and it's not them actually gasping for air, it's just muscle contractions, involuntary muscle contractions. And like, the dog's not in pain, they're not aware, like, it's just a muscle reaction when their body is releasing. And so I got really anxious because, like, I didn't want those to be my memories of the end. Like, it had been so peaceful up until that, so I was really scared. But I knew that, like, I wanted to be there for him. I had been so scared. Like, I'm leaving on September 22nd for LA, and I'm basically, other than a brief week in October, I'm not back here until January. I'm spending the rest of the year traveling for work and or in LA. And so my biggest fear was that he would go and I wouldn't be here, because all he wanted at the end of his life in the last few months was me, and the last thing I could do for him as his mom was be there to comfort him at the end. And so I knew that, as scared as I was that something like that, like, that he would throw up or get disoriented or gasp, like, would happen, I knew I couldn't just, like, step out of the room now. Like, this was my last moment to comfort him. And he gave him the sedative, and nothing happened. He didn't get sick, he didn't get nauseous or disoriented, he just stayed in my lap. And his eyes got heavy, and he just fell asleep. And then he put the other medication through, and nothing happened. He didn't gasp, he didn't twitch, nothing. I had my hand on his stomach, like on his rib cage, and I could feel him just slowly take his last breath. And it was as peaceful an end as you could imagine. Because again, he was blessed beginning to end. It was the perfect ending. Laying in my arms, in my bedroom, just falling asleep. And that was really it. I hadn't really eaten a lot of food because I am somebody, as I've talked about in the past, who all my emotions are stored in my gut. I really struggle with eating when I'm overwhelmed and emotional, so I hadn't really eaten, and I knew that I needed to. So we got out of the house and we went to a totally different neighborhood, to a restaurant we had never been to and had no memories at, because we didn't want to, like, go somewhere we love or local that we would then forever have the memory that that's where we went right after he passed. So I got Elton out and went to this restaurant, and we just had comfort food, you know, whatever it was that we could get down, and came home and we got some cheesy popcorn, and I just wanted to be alone. So I just went to my bedroom, and the first night was the hardest because he wasn't there. And like every time that I have slept in my room in this condo for months, he's been there. It's funny the things that you miss when someone is gone. Like, my room doesn't have a lot of floor space, and so it's actually really tricky constantly navigating around two big dogs laying there. Like, I can't see them, and I was always trying to step over them and through them, and like Gallop wouldn't really get up at the end, you know, because of his legs. Like, he couldn't quickly move the way he could when he was younger, so it was up to me to get around him, and it was always really tricky, and I was like tripping, and then when that was gone, I really missed it, you know. But every day gets easier, and I'm lucky in that he was my retired dog, not my current working dog, the way Gypsy was when she passed, which made it infinitely harder. Like, I'm so lucky that I have had a year with an amazing new dog, Elton, and, you know, that I had that last day with him, that it wasn't just, okay, you need to let him go and it's now. Like, I had that last day, that last night, those last really peaceful memories. Like, that night, the Wednesday night, like, my mom, my dad, and I all took him for a final walk together, and he got around the block really well, and like, it was just nice to have all those little memories that are really positive. And the next night, the Friday, we watched A Dog's Purpose, about a dog that reincarnates and comes back to find its original owner, and we ate a cheese charcuterie to celebrate him. And yeah, it's just, in his final moments, when I was talking to him, I told him that he has to come back for me so we can do it all again. And I believe he will, because I believe Gypsy came back. So I think he will too. Maybe my next dog will get Gallop again, which would be really nice. To get the calm boy after the sass of Gypsy back again. Yes, you. Yeah, so that's everything. That's how it happened. That's what went down. That's why he had to go. It was just his time. And I'm lucky I got as much time with him as I did. And yeah, thank you all for your love and your support and your kindness. And we're doing all right. Right? Yeah, we're doing all right. I don't really know how to end a video like this, but here are some adorable photos of Gallop through the years. And almost like after a breakup or any like big life change where you've gone through like loss or grief or anything, I like am ready for a change. Like, I just need change in my life. You know, where all of a sudden you're like, I need to change my hair and change my style and change my nails and change everything in my life. I feel like that. So I got blue nails for the first time, which felt fitting because I'm feeling a little blue, and both metaphorically and literally. And then the next video you're gonna see is a big hair change, like an actual big hair change. There's no going back to blonde. Goodbye blonde, enjoy it while you have it. Although there is a bunch of pre-filmed videos that you'll see after where I'm blonde again. But new haircut, chopping a bunch, totally changing the color. There's no going back after this one, so fingers crossed it's good, but I'm ready for change. I need newness. It's a new chapter. It's the end of an era, and I can genuinely say the happiest years of my life were the ones where he guided me. No offense, Elton, but Gallop guided me through the years where my dreams came true, thanks to all of you, and it's pretty special. So he was the perfect dog to walk through those crazy years with me. He stayed calm and steady throughout all of those wild, hectic storms, because that's just who he was. So until next time, here's a cute Gallop video years ago when he tried to wear boots for the first time. He was like breakdancing on the beach in LA. And here is another adorable Gallop video. Love you guys, and thank you, Gallop, for the happiest years of my life.